Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. In today's video, I will be talking about season 1, episode 7 called The Changeling. This episode was a little bit different, but I will further explain to you about that in just a few minutes. But let's talk about episode 6 right quick, which I didn't review. I felt like last episode was a filler and it wasn't needed. That episode should have been a flashback with a mixture of episode 4 when Cal was talking to Apollo about how she met Emma. So let's dive into episode 7, and this episode is all about Lillian. We finally get to know her a little bit more, and it seems that Lillian had a secret she had kept for a long time. Now, Lillian had been through some things and she kept that balled up inside of her, especially with Brian. I like how LaValle narrates how a trans woman in a gold sequin dress was murdered at the Elk, and her body wasn't found for weeks. The woman offering Lillian a donut outside the Elk wore that same dress. I love how this kind of parallel Lillian wearing the gold sequin dress and feeling completely alone and anonymous in the world like many women and marginalized communities do. The story flashes back to 1981. Young Lillian arrives home after working a Saturday and leaving a 4-year-old Apollo alone. It's the scene we've seen many a times. She comes home and there's smoke or fog or steam pouring out from under the door. In the present, Lillian's whole life is flashing before her eyes, beginning with fleeing Uganda after soldiers murdering her brother in front of her. She wonders if everything that's happened to her family is her fault for leaving. If she had stayed, she would have been wiped out by a dictator like the rest of her family. The thought causes her to discard her faith in a loving God who would allow these things. She rips off her cross necklace and devours God. Then she begins recording her story on tape for Apollo. How she fled Uganda and how she loved his father, how she put the weight of her happiness onto him. Lillian recounts of how she struggled to be a good mother to Apollo in America. She felt like she had to sacrifice her own culture and forget her own upbringing just to survive in this foreign land. She felt outcast like this wasn't her home. Next, Lillian analyzed her relationship with Brian. He was bipolar, either lavishing Lillian with attention or belittling her and her heritage instead. He was exactly the same with Apollo. Brian loved his son, but he could have been violent towards him as well. Young Lillian puts the 1980s tape recorder where she made the confession into the red suitcase. The show insinuated she somehow got him into the Elk Hotel, put Brian West's body in a gold sequin dress, and stuffed him under the bed where he went undiscovered for weeks. She kept her promise to be the best mother she could be to Apollo, and she believed it was her actions that caused all her pain in Apollo's life. But the truth is, Brian West was a danger for both of them. He was so absorbed with his own pain of being abandoned and of seeing himself as a good husband and a father that he could accept no other narrative about himself. He'd rather kill Apollo and Lillian and find himself than accepting that his action made him dangerous. He passes this on to his son, Apollo, too. Is so self-absorbed in the idea of being a good father, and he doesn't even notice his baby has been gone for months. He would parent a monster before he considered the concern of his wife as the concerns of a good mother. Men in the stories they tell themselves about who they are having life-threatening consequences. Lillian knew that, and so did Emma. So the question is, did Lillian cheated on Brian? Towards the end of the episode, the camera then lingers over the hotel sign-in book, revealing that Lillian and Charles did in fact stay at the hotel together as their names are written underneath each other. The twist ending reveals that Brian was right, Lillian and Charles was having an affair together. This also implies that maybe Charles is Apollo's biological father after all and not Brian. Throughout the episode, Lillian blames herself for what happened to Apollo in the present. She believes that somewhere her crimes in the past led to Apollo's misfortune in the present. In the final shot, Lillian buries her secrets into the suitcase in the ocean where a sinister creature is looking. I felt like Apollo and Emma's family never had any superpowers. The entire time I was thinking about Brian being a troll or a fairy, and Lillian and Emma's mom may be a witch. But I realized that is not true. They both dealt with different issues of mental health and how it had passed down onto Apollo and Emma. Even though throughout the entire series, we see the fairy tales and we see the clues of what could have been or what is happening right now. But I don't know about you guys, in the back of my mind, I always thought maybe one of Apollo's parents or Emma's parents was involved in these fairies, but that's not the case. I felt like, just like I said, both families dealt with some terrible mental health issues and they had to discover on their own. So I felt like Apollo and Emma are in a crossfire when it comes to a fairy tale that had happened long ago. I like the powerful storytelling, but the pacing of this episode was very slow and a little confusing, especially if you're not understanding the story. And if you have not seen the first episode and you jump right into episode 7, yes, you would definitely be lost. But overall, I thought this episode was okay. Is it better than episode 6? Absolutely. I'm not gonna lie, I just wasn't feeling episode 6 as well. And like I said in the beginning, I felt like that was a filler. I would rate this episode a 6.5 out of 10. Let me know your thoughts down below and your theories about this episode or the entire episode that you have watched from 1 through 7. Let me know what you think of it. Do you think it's still confusing? Do you not understand it? Or do you think that you did understand it and you know what the whole story is about? Thank you so much for watching my channel. Make sure you like and subscribe. And until then, see you later.